is going to be very tough for them. Okay? Thank you. So, any difficulty with the first section?
No, ma'am.
Conscious mind? With the mask that you're wearing? Okay? You know, there's something very interesting that I'm noticing these days. That our attention span is getting very, very short.
Yes.
Therefore, everything is Insta shorts, reels, you know, and we're getting very used to it. Now, this is a very dangerous thing for a teacher to cultivate. Because as an academic, you need to have very extended periods of concentration. So, if you are into it, of course, you enjoy that for a while, but don't make that a habit, because for our profession, it's something very dangerous. Another thing that I'm noticing is, earlier when we used to have seminars, workshops and all, they were very weighty workshops, a lot of information, a lot of new learning came from it. Again, because of the demand that comes from the audience to be entertained all the time, a lot of emotional stuff comes in. And I'm not saying emotional in a derogatory way, but just a lot of masti, majha, and that's the end of it. You know, I'm not against that. Again, as teachers also we need to understand that for our students, content mastery is very important. So we must ensure that the content is thoroughly dealt with, and then over and above that, there can be activities and fun and creativity and all. Not as an add-on. Creativity is a way in which you will, you know, teach. I'm going to be doing a whole course with you in B.Ed Part 2 on global citizenship education through techno courses. So we will do all that. But even at this stage, I urge you to understand that entertainment is needed. Entertainment is fine. I'm absolutely fine if you say, give us a 5-minute break. We just want to dance. We want to loosen our limbs. We want to do something. I'm fine with that. I'm also making light of something which is very, very serious. Because this is information over a lifetime which has been gathered and which has been tried and tested with students at different levels, but teachers at different levels, not only in India and abroad as well. So it's a time that it's quite valid, the kind of work that I'm doing with you. So don't let it end with B.Ed Part 1. And I would be very happy also if some of you came up to me and said, out of all these things you've taught, I would like to teach the next class, the D.Ed. Is it on?
Yes.
No. It just cut out this bit. Right now. Huh? Out of all these units that you've taught, that we'd like to teach, I would like to teach this particular micro unit to the D.Ed. Because you have the full responsibility of teaching this entire class. Why is everyone bunched up at the back? Any reason apart from the fan? Everyone's just bunched up at the back. I mean, I know the fan is there, but is that the only reason? So as you know, keep thinking from now which of these parts you are going to personally teach the D.Eds. You can do micro units. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can just do healthy personas and unhealthy personas and take that as a micro unit of teaching and make sure that the next group understands it so that they pass it on to the other students. That's the whole idea of peer teaching. Okay, because I can't be here with you forever. I have already taken up a big challenge of introducing this stuff to kids. And I think I'm going to enjoy myself doing that because I love working with kids. But children from 5 to 7, all the children in that school, IJCSE school, one batch, and students from 8 to 12. So that's again another thing, another challenge that I have taken up, because I need to find out who the superheroes are. How to approach them will be completely different from the way I've approached it with you. So I cannot be attached to one place forever and go on doing it with different groups of students, but you can. You do it so well and get the next group so enthused. And see, I'm leaving with you my manual, my book, my videos. Everything is there with you. Everything is there with you. You just need to bring in your creativity and make it even more interesting for people of your age. Okay? Alright? So now you can begin. So cut off this. So now we come to the second gateway. We've opened the first gateway to the mind, which is conscious mind. Only the tip of the iceberg, just the tip of the cone, after which we have the unconscious. The unconscious is divided into three parts. You'll see that in a moment. You can turn the slide. Hey, today it's fast. So we mainly dealt with the personas, though we said that the conscious mind is also made up of what? Thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and preconscious. And in the preconscious we have memory and we have the personas. And then we dealt with the personas and we talked about how you can wear a healthy mask instead of an unhealthy mask. And that healthy mask is always aligned to which function? Your superior function or inferior function? Superior function. Never your inferior function. If it is aligned to your inferior function, you will come out inauthentic. Okay? Now we delve very, very interestingly into our unconscious. This is the first layer. And we have a lot to cover today. I'm really sorry, ideally speaking, I would have wanted to do this on 2 separate days, because I'm sure by 2 o'clock, you will be suffering from information overload, and I'll be dead by then. But it's a very, very exciting section. Once you get this, you've got the hang of most of the program, okay? So now we are going to deal with shadow, complexes, inner child, anima, animus, a lot of stuff. Again, as usual, if anyone has not understood what I'm saying, the fault is mine. I have not communicated in a crystal clear manner, otherwise all of you would understand. So don't think that by asking her to repeat, I am emerging as someone who has not understood, as deficient in any way. No, the communication lapse is from my end. So please don't hesitate to ask. Okay?
Yes.
All right? So now, the most important aspect of ourselves, which we need to understand and which we encounter when we are willing to turn our gaze inward. Normally, our gaze is outward. So the first archetype, what is an archetype? I will do with you in great detail once we come to the collective unconscious, but I touched upon it last time as well, that an archetype is something we are born with. It is to the mind what instincts are to the body. Remember that for the time being. Now the first archetype we meet is an archetype called the shadow. Where there is light, there must be shadow. So similarly, we have a bright side to our personality, right? And we have an awkward, maladjusted, perhaps even dark side to our personality, which is called the shadow. What does this image do for you? What does this image do for you? How does it speak to you, this image?
We show ourselves like this, but we are inside like this. I feel.
Yeah, the two are symbiotic. They can't be separated. So in other words, there is no human being, however saintly a person may appear, who does not have a shadow. So everyone, every single one, without exception, has a shadow side. Alright? Sometimes you may say, you may have encountered this in your interactions, where you feel that someone is amazingly good, and the person says, "You really? Are you kidding? That person is a snarling idiot." And you've not seen that snarling idiot side of that person. And unfortunately, the person who has seen that snarling side of you does not even believe that there is a lovely aspect of you. Right? So, there is so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us that it does not befit any of us to speak about the rest of us. Okay? So, let's carry on. This is our shadow. We'll deal with the shadow first. And you have been introduced to this concept. You've even got your 27 questions. Everyone has not worked on these 27 questions. I urge you to do that. Okay? Our persona, our mask, suppresses or represses psychological material which it considers awkward or inappropriate. This constitutes our shadow entity. Let's stop and look at it. Suppression is conscious. Repression is unconscious. Got that? Therefore, these two words are used. Though they are often used interchangeably in common parlance, the truth is that suppression is conscious, repression is unconscious. The things that are awkward or inappropriate. Now, what are the things, if you would like to share, what is the one aspect of you among the many, many awkward or inappropriate things? What's the one aspect of you have no problem sharing with the class? One shadow aspect. I could begin. My shadow aspect is that I love technology, but I fear it. Because I belong to the generation of digital immigrants. You kids are digital natives. So appearing foolish, not getting it right is a big fear. That's a shadow aspect of myself. Another shadow aspect of myself is that when someone says something, I tend to overthink and read more meaning than necessary. And of course, because I'm aware, I'm immediately correcting myself. But that is an aspect of myself. Okay, so I've shared with you two of my shadow aspects. Would somebody want to come up quickly and say, what are the shadow aspects? Normally you'd love to talk about your persona, your conscious self, but this is the awkward part of you. This is the maladjusted part of you. Yes? One more shadow aspect of myself is my confusion between right and left.
Yes.
I was meant to be a lefty, but I was forced to write with my right hand and do things with my left hand. So even today, like, you know, I can do any amount of free dancing and all, but if I left foot, right foot, oh, which one is my left, which one is my right? My writing hand or my non-writing hand? So I can't drive a car. Obviously, because I've been pressing the brake instead of the accelerator. Yeah? So come on. Anyone would like to share? Or if you feel awkward about your shadow, then don't share. It's okay. Anyone? Yeah?
I think my shadow self would be, I like doing a number of things, but then at the back of my head, it's like, what if, you know, it is perceived as this is so kiddish, like we are doing something much more than me. So, or also, I don't want to come off as a person that is showing off too much.
Very good. You don't want people to think of you as a show-off. Yeah. I also have another shadow which is a very impatient shadow. I like things to be done quickly. Whether it's cooking or cleaning or writing a paper, I do a lot of research. Take 3 weeks to do research and hardly 3 days to write. But I like things being done on the spot, punctually at the right time. And when I see somebody acting in a sloppy way, it irritates me, frankly, yeah. Yes, I shared so many shadow aspects of myself. There's only one person who wants to talk about a shadow, yes?
I'm deeply passionate about personal development and personal growth. But at the first sign of a challenge or a difficult task that I'm uncomfortable doing, my first response is to validate.
Exactly, how lovely is this? How lovely is this? Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone else? Courageous enough? All of us have a shadow. What are you worried about? No? Okay, let's carry on. A shadow differs from a complex. Don't use the words interchangeably. A shadow differs from a complex. A complex occurs when you experience a trauma in life, small or big. But that trauma makes you lapse into a state of, that gives you your shadow. I'm sorry, that gives you a complex, not your shadow. So complexes are always connected with trauma, not the shadow. Shadow is very normal. And actually so is trauma, because big or small, all of us also have traumas. Right. So it's not a trauma that has pushed it into the unconscious. Next. We all know of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The brilliant story by Robert Louis Stevenson, where the same man transforms himself, scientist transforms himself into an evil character, Hyde, and to the very professional, kind-hearted, right-thinking Dr. Jekyll. So we all have these two aspects within ourselves. Next, Frankenstein. You've heard of Frankenstein. And unfortunately, it's been made into a terrible horror movie. When it's not, it's the most brilliant psychological novel that's ever been written. So, Frankenstein is this rational-minded scientist. And what he calls a monster is that part of himself which he is unable to accept. And therefore he demonizes. What we are not able, now listen to this very carefully, what we are not able to accept about ourselves, we demonize and we project it onto others. Alright? I'm repeating this, is very, very important. What we do not like about ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, we demonize. And then what do? We don't stop there. We project it onto someone in the external environment. Alright? Got that? Now, a very, very simple example from young people's life would be when your parents give you a curfew time. You come home by this time. You get irritated and you feel that, why am I being mistrusted? Why don't they understand me better? Blah, blah, blah. The truth is, which part of it is unadjusted, maladjusted within you to make you feel this way? Don't you like rules in your life? Can you live without rules completely?
No.
Can you be sitting here and playing a record, a music, a loud song which you love? There are rules. We can't function in society without rules. But that is something you don't really, you've not come to terms with within yourself. You've projected it onto someone else. And always, the shadow is projected onto people near and dear you. Dear to you. I mean, some people don't even see your shadow side. But your parents, your family, your very, very close friends, they see your shadow side. Metaphorically, how does this shadow get formed? When we are growing up, we are told certain things are good and certain things are not that good. Whatever is rejected, I told you last time, goes into our backpack. We don't see it. We don't see it. Others see it. That constitutes our shadow. If we were very, very artistic and we wanted to, if we were asked as little children before the age of 7 or 8, what do you want to grow up to be? I want to grow up to be an artist. What? We're sending you to this IJCSE school paying lakhs of rupees for your fees only to get you to do what? Only. Why is the artist seen as anything less than any other profession? Well, you justify it by saying it can't earn you steady money and this and that. But success and happiness do not depend only on that. You could be doing a job you entirely hate only for the money of it. And that's going to make you much more of a shadow figure yourself because you'll be snarling and getting irritated because it doesn't give you joy. And you're supposed to engage with that for about 8 to 10 hours a day. So this is extremely useful. This science is extremely useful. All of us are encountering this. Next image of Superman. You recognize him. And the bumbling journalist. So we have that awkward side also to us. A side that finds it very difficult maybe to tie laces. Or a side that just does the wrong thing. When a teacher is teaching a certain kind of dance, you're doing something which is completely out of rhythm. And you're then embarrassed. Oh my God, I mean, how is it I don't have rhythm in me? But everyone need not do that, isn't it? And we saw from the kind of wonderful work that you all produced that we're good at different things. And thank God for it. Imagine if God said, human beings need vegetables. I'll make one good vegetable and finish it off. I don't care for the taste. Or human beings need fruits. I'll make one good fruit and finish it off. Look at the variety in nature. Similarly, there is variety among us. And what you can do as co-teachers, as well as teachers later on, is to support the creativity of other people. I may not have that, but instead of sitting and being jealous and being full of rancor and bitching about that person, I mean, how brilliantly she dances, how beautifully she does Rangoli. When you support, can I do something to assist you in your gymnastics, as a sports person, whatever it be, as a writer, as a cartoonist? The permutations are endless. So instead of doing that, we just get into our heads and get all messed up, and our shadow then plays tricks on us. Because this poor bumbling journalist can never believe that he has that kind of superpower. He wears a cape. So metaphorically, you wear the cape, and you know that you are limitless. You are limitless. We are putting limits on it. I can do this, I cannot do this. But why? Because some teacher way back told you, oh, you're not good at it. And you've internalized it. I wasn't good at it then, probably, or she thought I wasn't good at it, but I'm willing to give it a try. Like I keep promising myself, I love art, and I love mandala painting. So I tell myself, the minute I find time, I'm going to get back to mandala. I'm going to try out my hand at mandala painting. Maybe I'll be good at it, maybe I won't. That's okay, but I've tried. So this aspect, this heroic aspect of ourselves. Now this is very powerful. The qualities that we hate most passionately in others are the same we despise within ourselves. Very, very quickly, without thinking too much, give me one quality you hate. Anyone.
About whom? About whom?
Others.
Sorry?
About whom?
One quality. It may not be in you. One quality you hate, absolutely, passionately hate.
Being irresponsible.
Being irresponsible.
I'm taking things personally.
Taking things personally.
Telling lies.
Telling lies, yes.
Not being on time. Yes, being late. Not being on time.
Not being punctual, yes. Procrastination. You hate these qualities.
Sarcasm.
You hate these qualities when others demonstrate it. They're always there in you as well. Always. There are times when even the best of us who enjoy information and knowledge and all could say, oh God, I wish you could have a break. I wish you could run away and just be in the mountains or whatever. Best of us would lie. Anyone here who hasn't lied? Ever? Ever? So what are we so hyper about? Everything that we despise in others is something which exists in ourselves. Oh, I'm not the jealous kind. Really? Let your best friend be walking down the road with your boyfriend. Then we'll check it out. Right? I mean, where does it come from? If it's not there in you, if from? The writer Margaret Atwood very powerfully put it. She says, everything human is me. Everything human. Even the worst crimes that you say that I would never commit, you may choose not to commit, but you are capable of it. If we had the kind of indoctrination that the terrorists had, we would probably be doing the same thing at Gateway or the Taj Mahal. We would. So anything and everything human is me. The minute you realize that, something very major happens, you become free. You become free of projecting constantly. When you do project, you'll become aware. Okay, got this? Very, very powerful. Very powerful. All right. We need to ask this very you that I hate about me. What is it in you that I hate about me? Again, I love examples because that's the safest. When I first saw girls coming out with purple and green hair, streaking and all of that, and I thought to myself, how disgusting. Do they even look at themselves in the mirror? And then I tried to work on myself. Maybe it is this absolute bohemian self, this life. So again and again you need to ask yourself, why is it disturbing me? Acid test. If something passes through your mind without disturbing you, then you don't have to deal with it. But if something disturbs you, even creates a ripple in your mind, you need to look at it. What happened, Tabassum? Why are you so unhappy?
I'm happy.
You're happy?
Yes.
All right. So this is a very important question. What is it in you? Next time you try to criticize someone, ask yourself this and you'll be free of that feeling of irritation and whatever. What is it in you that I hate about me? It's all there in your manual. You know what I've done this time? This time, because it's more challenging, it's much more psychological, I've actually made summaries for you in the form of these anchor points. Alright? So next. But, according to the psychologist Jung, and we're doing Jungian work, once understood and accepted, the shadow is 80% gone because it helps you to move on. Imagine for the rest of your life, you are not going to get irritated by people with purple streaked hair. Isn't that freedom? Because who's getting irritated and upset? Me? Is it worth it? Why should I get upset because of the choices made by somebody else? Stupid, isn't it? So, Jung said, once understood and accepted, the shadow is gold. Everything that you understand about yourself free you more and more. This is understood.
Yes.
Yeah? Is it idealistic?
Not.
Not at all. It's purely psychological. Alright? Whereas Freud said everything that is there is garbage. All this, according to Freud, would be garbage. But the realizations that dawn on us make us grow emotionally and spiritually. Okay? So, very often you will find that people who appear very nice and gentle have a mean and angry side which they are repressing or suppressing. Okay, and suddenly it bursts. Suddenly it comes out and you say, oh, she's normally so sweet-tempered, what happened to her today? But you know, that's why it's very, very important. I'm telling you this from my own personal example. I have grown up at a time when we were made to believe that little girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice. So little girls don't show their temper to others. What does this do? This results in repression or suppression. And I was basically of that kind. I would never speak up. Never. If somebody irritated me also, I would try and take it and keep quiet about it, be very unhappy about it, maybe go and cry, do all kinds of things, but not speak up. Then much later in life, I learned the art of speaking my truth peacefully and powerfully. Peacefully, I said this earlier, peacefully and powerfully. You don't have to hurt someone, you don't have to shout back, but you can do it in a way where you put your point across. We are going to do that before the end of the session. Okay? So, hardworking, oh, I wish I could be lazy. I wish I could laze around for a day. And as I laugh and say, that having one free day is not there in my Janam Kundi. An unassertive person will actually be very power hungry because that's the repressed part of it. Overly caring, callous. I've repressed that part. Okay? Next. List 5 qualities you passionately hate. And you've already done that bit here. You can do it at home. Part of your manual work, please. But this time, as I said, if you leave it for the end, you will not be able to do it because there are too many concepts. So after each session, fill in your manuals. Okay? So list 5 qualities you passionately hate. And then, as I said, understand that these 5 qualities are also there in you. Got it? This is huge. You know, this is lifetime of work. There are seminars and seminars on accepting your shadow self. They are not necessary. Only because once you have this knowledge, you can do it on your own. But you must be willing to do it. Next. The exercise is on page 59 of my book. And the book has 21 days of inner work for a conscious, joyful life. This is day 7. Okay? Next. Is the shadow understood? Is the shadow understood? Clearly?
Yes.
All right. Now the complexes. Jung said that again, understanding the complexes are the right royal road to the unconscious. They help you to understand your unconscious self. Okay. Like everything else, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention a very important detail. The shadow need not always be negative. It could also be a positive shadow. Those people who live by their negative shadow, like the antisocial characters, they live by their, मैं गुंडा हूँ. They live by their antisocial characters. I'm a murderer. Okay, fine. I'm living by that image. They always have a positive shadow, which they repressed. And that positive shadow is again projected onto somebody else. Again, we'll deal with it when we come to anima animus. So, everything, even the shadow, everything about us has a light side and a dark side to it. Okay? We saw that with personas, healthy personas and unhealthy personas. Positive shadow. When do you project a positive shadow? When you say, I love my teacher. Especially as little children, we don't see anything wrong with our teacher. Our teacher knows much more than our parents, according to us.
Yes.
Right? That is when you're projecting your positive shadow onto somebody else. When you just adore that person, when you worship that person, when you feel this person is not capable of doing anything wrong. This also happens in the spiritual arena when you completely get besotted by a spiritual leader or a guru, and you feel that guru can do no wrong. But that guru is also human. The guru is also human. Therefore, one of my teachers always tells me, get attached to the teaching and not the teacher. Get attached to the teaching and not the teacher. Because when the teacher is ultimately fallible, the teacher could do wrong, and then you'll go to the other extreme and say, I reject that person. Right? So that is, again, awareness that we are projecting our positive shadow onto that person. Positive shadow is the best version of ourselves. So we would love to be at an unconscious level, we would love to be like that person. Great. We all need those positive shadows as well. But remember that again, that is also an aspect of you. So you can become the best version of yourself. Got it?
Yes.
Tired?
No, ma'am.
Okay. If you want a break, 5-minute break, tell me now. We move on to complexes?
Yes.
Right, next. What is the difference in thinking between Freud and Jung about complexes? According to Freud, complexes are illnesses caused by repressed childhood. According to Jung, it's normal. Whether we know it or not, whether we recognize it or not, we all have complexes. Just as we all have shadow. Because it's an archetype. Remember I talked to you last time about how the ego is an archetype and therefore you can't do away with the ego? According to Freud, complex is psychic garbage. According to Jung, challenges to evolve. According to Freud, they emerge only from the upper layer, personal unconscious. According to Jung, they also come from the deeper collective unconscious. Okay? Carry on. Some of you have this. When I feel that I can't really manage technology without learning, it doesn't come easily. It's an inferiority complex in this area. But I could be having a superiority complex in some other area. Right? So it's not that you have just one. In different areas of your life, you could be having different kinds of complexes. Next, I love this, megalomania. I've got a friend. So many people have this complex, who feel that they can change the world. Can I change of even one of you if you don't will it? I can't. But people who have this megalomania complex, they feel, oh, I'm so fantastic that I know how to change the world. And I don't want to take names, but there are lots of people who feel that way. This is a megalomania complex. Those of you who have done literature, how many have done literature, would remember Dr. Faustus, who felt that he was a be-all and end-all of knowledge, Tamburlaine, alright, who could conquer any place, etc. Right? So that's megalomania. Peter Pan complex is something that your entire society validates. Don't grow old. Take responsibility. But Peter Pan never likes to take on responsibility. If I don't want to, I won't do it. Chalo, kya karenge? Right? Okay? So Peter Pan complex is an absolute refusal to take on responsibility, because growing older means taking on responsibility. And at the more physical level, our complete beauty mystique teaches us to look like auntie. Auntie? No. Didi. Huh? Margie? Terrible. Really terrible. Haven't all of you had this experience where some little kid said, hello auntie, and you say, hey, auntie, kisko bolta hai?
Yes.
And then when you're slightly older, someone will say, Margie, मैं आपको लेके चल. Margie, किसको बोलता है? Why? Why are we so uncomfortable with our age? Because the entire society is anti-aging. And it's got all these creams and ungans and surgeries to make you look young. So all the time, your mind gets extroverted. Perhaps it's time to stop looking into the mirror and look within yourself. But you're not encouraged to do that. You have to try and look young as long as you can. And which is ridiculous if you go to see it. When I go for my haircut, and if it's a new hairdresser, do you want to do a facial because it'll take away these wrinkles? No, I've earned these wrinkles. And of course they think you're crazy. Nobody talks like that. But I'm completely comfortable with the way I look. Of course, I don't look even 10% of what I used to. I was a very, very pretty girl. That's okay, that was a stage. That was a stage, it's gone, fine, I'm okay with it. I have to age. I mean, do you ever see an animal or a bird getting hyper about aging? It's ridiculous. It's entirely, and that becomes our shadow. Today, if I ask you, what are the things, what are the images you associate with old age? They will 90% be negative. Incapacity to look after myself, or this or that. They will, and huge amount of research has been done on this. Because we've been fed with this, and all of us now have this Peter Pan complex. So if somebody asks me, are you 60? I look younger by 7 years. I'm 67. But if somebody says, oh, how nice, even at your age of about 75 now, I look like 75. Why? Why? Something to think about, right? Yeah, tell me. You said something? Sorry? Okay. Persecution mania. Look at this cartoon, I love it. Whether you're tense, or they're all talking about me, or you have a deadpan bland as an egg custard face, but still thinking in your mind they're all talking about me. Hasn't it happened that you have walked into a room and people suddenly stop talking
Yes.
and you think they're talking about me? Yeah, okay. So this is evidence. Savior complex. I know how to save other people. Not just save yourself first. But we are very ready to save other people. So you have the savior complex, and the savior always has a martyr. We'll come to that in a minute. There can't be a savior without a martyr. The martyr says, I can't do it myself. And the savior says, don't worry, I'm there to help you. Helping is not wrong. But empowering is a different thing. Yes.
Ma'am, a good example for this is in my school when I used to play football, I was in defense. So
You were?
I was in defense. I used to defend, like I was.
Oh, okay.
So I was the main thing in that whole game. So this thing which martyr complex and the previous one which was
Savior.
savior complex. So that really relates to me because I used to be like the savior and the martyr in one game, you know.
Yes.
Where I had to
How
save
brilliant
and I
is
had
this
to
example?
pick
How
that.
brilliant, it applies to every kind of sport, doesn't it? I mean, when Virat Kohli hits a sixer and all, when that sixer becomes the reason for losing the match. Yeah, you're very right. I didn't think of that. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Savior and martyr? Lots of us love playing the martyr. It is very, very emotionally nourishing to play the martyr, but in a very unhealthy way, no? Like somebody will come and tell you, come, let's go out for a movie. No, Rebecca, there's so much of housework to do. I'll do it at home, you all go. And then after they actually go, see, they all went away. You played the martyr, Charlie. You played the martyr. I can't do this work because of my health. I could have said that all my life because I've been a chronic asthmatic from birth, from the age of 2. So I can't talk. Could have done that, right? So, but I've used my asthma in sly ways sometimes to get out of tests that I don't want to appear for. The shadow side of me. Okay? So the martyr complex. You got this?
Yes.
And this is again a complex which is more predominant among women than of men. Why? From our infancy, we are the Barbies, aren't we? We are the dolls, we are the nurturers, we are the nourishers, and the guys with their bread box muscles are all there to say, but give the guys a break also. Let them be human. They need to save themselves rather than trying to save us most of the time. We are not really the damsels in distress that our fairy tales made us out to be. Isn't it?
They need to save themselves more than caring.
Actually, you know what? This is something I've been feeling for a very, very long time. That feminism is misunderstood.
Yes.
Feminism is misunderstood as man-hating. All my life I've done immense amount of research and writing on gender studies. And if it breeds hatred in you, then it's not succeeded. Because men are our sons and lovers. We can't send them to Mars, and we can't be in Venus. We're here both on Earth. Isn't it? And soon we'll be realizing how we cannot reject men. Also, women have changed so radically, but men have not really understood the change because we've been living in patriarchy. So isn't it our duty to be a little patient and to help them to understand us? Most of the time there will be anger, frustration, because they've been brought up in a certain way. Of course, thankfully now, in most places, not all, obviously as you know, a girl child is welcomed. But not all. Female infanticide is not a thing of the past. So when a boy is born, he's going to take the family name and the heritage and all that ahead is still very much a part of the collective psyche. So how can we help men? Instead of saying, oh, he said this, and this is most unlike him. It doesn't show that he believes in equality. But he's not been trained to believe in equality. Can we just help our men? You could be having a mammon mania, like King Midas. No amount of money is enough. Why, I know a man, I won't name him because he's probably known to you. He has 600 crores and he's crying. I only have 600 crores. Only. If I had two crores out of that, I'd be building my own school. It's not enough. Any amount of money is not enough.
Yes.
Because if I have a 1961 Fiat car, I won't say I have a car. Oh, such a Khatara car. I better go in for a better model and a better model. And then why not also, I've got space, a lot of space, why not a helipad? It goes on and on and on. There's no end to greed. Those of you who read The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens would know of Mr. Scrooge, right? Yes? You know. You also know the story of King Midas, who prayed to the gods that everything he touched would turn to gold. And then the food he wanted to eat touched to gold, so he was starving. His daughter turned to gold, and he realized how foolish this complex was. So this mad urge to make money, the mad urge for possessions. How much of jewelry can you wear? Yet you are told that every year you keep buying new jewelry. For what? For what? Is it even possible for you to wear 2 gold necklaces, 10 gold necklaces at the same time? It's not. But we are encouraged to think in this way. Mammon mania. So to sum up, you have the Redeemer, the Messianic mania, I'm the chosen one. I know how to change the education system. Hero complex, castration complex. Oh, if I do this, I'll be thought unmanly. Virility complex. I must act like a man in every situation, even if I want to cry. Star student complex. This is a real problem because a student who always gets the first rank or the second rank is not allowed to relax and get the 10th rank. What happened to you? What have they happened to me? I'm chilling out. You can't say that. Star student. Loneliness complex. Guilt complex. Ego complex. I'm the center of the universe. Right. Now, as you remember, Jung said that complexes also come from the deeper layers of our psyche.
Yes.
So, they are associated with myth and legend. And being a storyteller, I would love to tell you the detailed stories of each and every one of them, but time doesn't permit it. So you could be having an Oedipus or an Electra complex and be unnaturally attached to your parent of the opposite sex. You could have a Griselda complex. It's the most disgusting, nauseating story. You know that? Can I tell you this?
Yes.
So Griselda was a very pretty peasant girl. Don't worry, everything is in your manual. No need to take pictures. Everything is in your manual. I have labored to make summaries for you. So Griselda wanted to get married, and she met a very handsome prince one day who married her, as they usually do in fairy tales. And this is a folk tale, this is not a fairy tale. So she got married to this guy, and she got pregnant with a baby. She delivered the baby, and the man said, I'm not sure whether this baby should remain with you. And he takes the baby away. And he says, I've killed the baby. And she goes on getting pregnant again and again and again, and she goes on delivering, and this man takes her children away. And she's patient, Griselda. So she still does all her duties without protest. And then one day, this man who has become king by then says, well, I'm going to get married to a young girl. I don't need you anymore. And I want you to help me with all the wedding ceremonies. So of course, patient Griselda, being the patient one that she was, she helped him with all the marriage preparations. And just before they were going to take the vows, he reveals that this is your eldest child. So why did he take the children away? He said, I was testing you to see if you loved me enough. He deprived her of motherhood, the joys of bringing up a child, because he wanted to make sure that she loved him more than the kids. That's the patient Griselda complex. Kuch bhi hoga, main to sahan kar lungi. Martyr complex. But when it comes from a deeper level, it's a Griselda complex. Medea complex, Medea killed her children. And it happens, it's played out even today. When a mother destroys, not necessarily physically, but it could be emotionally or psychologically, her own child. Cain complex, rivalry with siblings. Cleopatra complex. Completely obsessed by the way she looked. And Cleopatra, thankfully, that gave me courage, was my height. 5'0". But she always had this complex of being an amazingly beautiful person, when she was not. Historically, she was not. She was a very charming woman, but not a very beautiful woman. We'll understand that in the next session. Napoleon complex, we talked about it. Cassandra complex, intense knowing that one has a mission to accomplish, but that he or she suffers because people's disobedience and ignorance. My concept is so great, but these fools don't understand. Okay? Jonah complex, fear of success and personal growth. You know the story of Jonah in the Bible, in the belly of the whale, right? Then Adonis complex, again, the male counterpart of Cleopatra complex, total obsession. And you call such men fops. I will take half an hour or 45 minutes to dress up. I will probably take 45 minutes. Being a guy, you probably don't even do makeup, but God knows. And Pinocchio complex, the joy of lying and cheating others, because that gives you a sense of power over them. Okay, next. When stirred and awakened into action, complexes dominate our entire personality, while the ego descends into a state of psychic. It takes over, and then you say, I don't know. I keep craving for more money. Or I don't know why. I constantly other people. Alright? Got it? So, when overpowered by complexes, we are in a state of identity with them. What did I say earlier? That whatever lies in the unconscious is not known to us, so we can't deal with it. But with this kind of analysis, when we bring it up and it hits the frontal lobes of our brain, it becomes conscious. The minute it becomes conscious, we can deal with it. Got that?
Yes.
Right? Okay. What we, again, same is true of complexes. What we loathe and fear in others is what we loathe and fear most unconsciously in ourselves. Okay? Like gay bashing. Every single person is born with homoerotic feelings. Homoerotic feelings are a physical desire for someone of one's own sex. So if you're a woman, you can say she's my best friend, she's whatever, and there is a homoerotic bond, which you're not aware of, because these are not terms which are being used. But when you indulge in gay bashing, lesbian bashing, oh, she's a lesbian. You know how even today things have changed. Thankfully, they've changed, because if a person is lesbian or gay, it's none of your business. Frankly, it's none of your business. I mean, unless you are being invited to be a partner, then you can say yes or no. That choice is definitely yours. But gay bashing, lesbian bashing, all this LGBTQI. You know what LGBTQI is? Lesbian, gay, LGBT, bisexual, transgender, Q, queer, I, intersex. And now, of course, they've also added asexual. Because if you are, actually there is a science behind it. There is nothing like normal or abnormal, but there are certain chromosomes combinations which produce these desires. Now, because society needs to move forward and we need to procreate, therefore heterosexuality has been valorized, right? Not that these have been therefore listed as bad, as shameful, as something which is abnormal. But at the chromosomal level, it is something which has just happened to that person. So, do we really have the right to sneer, to jeer, to belittle that person because of his or her sexual orientation? This comes from a complex, again. Because if we realize that all of us, without exception, have homoerotic feelings, then you'll say, well, I have those homoerotic feelings, but I've chosen to be heterosexual, which is very, very different from gay bashing or lesbian bashing. You get that? What are your views on it? You know, something very interesting? Because I was appointed in the university as a literature professor, and I was supposed to be teaching literary theory and gender studies. On the very first day, one of the senior professors walked up to me, and I was 35. I said, what does that mean? The meaning, and I smiled and walked away. I chickened out. Frankly, I chickened out. Because he was so senior to me. First day, just because I was teaching gender studies. Interesting, huh? Also, exaggerated worship is likewise indicative of fear or laziness in displaying our strength. It's a play by the Indian playwright, Bombay-based playwright Mahesh Dattani, 30 Days of September. Anyone's read that play? It's one of the most painful things you can read, where the mother has been brought up to protect the image of the family, come what may. And the mother knows that her young daughter is being raped by her brother. And she says nothing. She goes on praying while the brother is raping her daughter. And of course, the daughter grows up totally warped, and she has a string of sexual alliances, and she purposely takes and dumps those men every few days. She's so badly scarred. So this excessive worship, worship is fine, of course, that's an archetype. But excessive worship to cover up for that you don't want to deal with is again a complex. How do we manage our shadow and our complexes? Next. We need to diffuse their power by talking empathetically to these subpersonalities as real people within us. That's why it's very often said that you say myself, but the truth is myselves, because there are that many selves in you at psychological level. But we try to make it sound very coherent, very cohesive, but the self is not that way. So, once brought to the awareness, I just said that, the frontal lobes, they can be dealt with. The person then moves from a personal to a transpersonal awareness. And when you move to a higher awareness, you can deal with it. Is this clear? Okay. This is a very, very powerful story that a Jungian psychologist had a very, very hard time. And I had 7 miscarriages. It wasn't. This man came from the US to teach Jungian psychology. And I just approached him like, any normal student. And I said, I'm having a very hard time. And in spite of my very cheerful, buoyant, mercurial personality that I'm displaying, inside I'm broken. And he asked me, what are you feeling? Simple, 2 words. Why me? I love children, always loved children, even as a very, very young girl. Why me? That's when he told me the story, and the story completely changed my thinking. According to the story, Keisha was this young girl who, like every other normal young girl, thought of getting married. She married a very handsome young man, and 7 months after the marriage, the husband passed away. And she was broken. But by then, she had conceived a baby. And the baby was born. She looked after the baby very carefully. 7 months, and the baby died. And that's when she lost her mind. And she took the baby, she strapped the baby to her body, and she told the villager she would not give the baby up for burial because the baby was still living, according to her. And everyone knew that she had lost her mind. And they were most empathetic, but they didn't know what to do. So they sent her to the Buddha. And the Buddha, who was compassion incarnate, just told her, go back to the village and get 1 teaspoon of mustard seeds from a house that has not known death. And she said, okay, that sounds easy. But she went from door to door, and in every house, someone had died. She went back to the Buddha, she fell at his feet, she put the child down, and she said only 2 words, I understand. So when things happen to us, they are extremely painful, and we think, why me? But this is the lot of humanity. You learn through your challenges. You grow through your challenges, as did Keisha, who then became a bodhisattva. Very powerful story. And as I kept thinking of it, I thought, why am I being so ungrateful? There are so many beautiful things that have happened in my life. I'm intelligent, I've got a job, I have a family, I've got so much to be grateful for. with my negativity bias, why am I only focusing on what I don't have rather than what I have? And that's when I started counting my blessings and things changed for me. So by then, I had an infertility complex. I am very good at writing poetry. Used to write the most depressing poems, pouring my heart out. Very visual. I'm also very visual, so the poems were very visual. And fortunately, I had the wisdom never to publish them. I just burned them at the end of the day because I didn't want anyone to get into that kind of gloom that I had got into. So when I was in the grips of this infertility complex, I could not think of anything else except why me? How unfair. But then I grew through that. I grew out of that pain and I could sort out my life subsequently. Right? So that's how we can deal with these complexes. Yeah. And day 8, the exercises are there in Amplified Living. So you look at them. We won't do the inner child in very great detail because there is a lot of text and all that text is with you. So I will quickly summarize inner child and move on to anima animus. You want a break? All right, let them come back. Aryan, you said 54 for this? 54. Is there anyone here who's been deprived of a journal on my account? Everyone here? Oh, you have. So, we're doing the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious today. On Tuesday when we meet, we do the deep self. That finishes the next section. Then on the 2nd, the first session will be your yoga session and my session is exam. Your next format of 25 marks with all this that we've covered. Okay? And after that, we will go on to other things. And finally, the summative exam will be in early March. There's one more girl there. Did you find this bit interesting?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, very.
Someone who didn't like it or felt that, it's not relevant, it's okay if you tell me that. Just hurry up and come because there's quite a bit to cover, huh? Don't worry if we don't finish everything again. I'm going to be with you from 12 o'clock again. 12 to 2 today. So I'll finish everything and then we leave. I believe today there is some major morcha at Sachivalaya. So don't go from that side. VT and all is going to be problematic here. After 2 o'clock you have a class?
Yes, ma'am.
Up to 4. start? There's only one girl who's out, right? Okay.
Ma'am, before we begin, you said that our complexes are connected to our trauma.
1 minute, there's a question here.
You said that our complexes are connected to our trauma, but sometimes isn't our trauma something that derives from our shadow self, like the projection of?
Yes.
So how do
No, the complex has come from your trauma. The shadow is things which usually come from the outside world and which are rejected.
Okay.
So they're just thrown into your backpack.
But then won't our complex and our shadow then like
They, of
align?
course, that's why they're all part of the personal unconscious.
Okay.
There are two more.
Okay.
The inner child. You'll see many overlaps.
Yeah.
Because one could say it's a martyr complex, and that could be a victim complex here. Now again, yeah, got it?
I got that.
Now we are going to move on to inner child. So just see how the inner child also overlaps with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, these are subpersonalities. The deep core of each of us is very vulnerable. This vulnerability comes from the greatest lie that we were separated from God. From the beginning, you are made to realize that God is somewhere, but not within you. And that lie has created a sense of separation, and therefore a yearning which manifests itself in the form of subpersonalities called the inner child. Again, for the inner child, there are innumerable workshops and innumerable manuals, some very, very good, and some not that good. But I've tried to summarize it. So this lie has led to permanent feelings of inadequacy. Now, as I said, there's a lot of text here, and you could read it on your own, but very simple. We develop a vulnerable child within us. Now, shadow, complex, and we have one or more inner child within us. And this inner child causes us to get triggered very easily. Very easily we get triggered on account of the inner child subpersonalities. So, yeah. These subpersonalities come into being on account of unresolved childhood experiences and may even date back to the moment of our conception. Even at the time, no blame. There's no blame on the parents, but even at the moment of conception, if the mother had an unconscious desire for a male child and a female child is born, an inner child is already there in the embryo. It dates back, that far back. They are as real as any bodily organ and are often the cause of our behavioral, emotional relationship difficulties. We'll see that very quickly. We must heal it, because if we don't heal the inner child, we pass it on. And as teachers again, if our own inner child is not understood, then we get triggered by our students. Okay? Yeah. Just like every archetype, there is a pained inner child and there's a joyful inner child, positive and negative. So how can we convert this pained inner child into a joyful? When I do seminars on this, for each inner child subpersonality, we have exercises, we have guided visualizations. But here for you, it's enough to understand this. And if you're interested, you could read up much more. The first is this combo of the pleaser and the rebel. As little children, when we smiled at our adults, they smiled back at us and got very thrilled. And we got our milk bottle. So that taught us that it's important for us to smile and to please people. But we also carried this into adulthood. Because we want people to love us. Remember that earlier lie of our separation? So because we have this desperate desire to be loved, we want to please everyone. And when somebody voices disapproval, it shatters us. This is because of the pleaser. Again, women are encouraged much more than men to become pleasers. Alright? You must look after other people. You must care for other people. Wonderful. But the same things are in the boys. Isn't it? How would it damage boys if they also cared for others and looked after others? Thank God things are changing. So this pleaser makes us inauthentic. You don't like something that someone has prepared, and yet you say, oh, it's very tasty, thank you so much. It's delectable. You're being a pleaser. Again, the same old thing. How do you speak your truth peacefully and powerfully? The flip side of the pleaser is a rebel. The rebel knows that he is not going to be able to please people, so I might as well act rebellious. So that's the flip side of the pleaser. The detailed notes are all here. The typical behavior of a pleaser and the typical behavior of a rebel. Okay? Very simple. But you've understood the concept. The driver. I'll win if it kills me. We have such a low self-esteem that we want other people to applaud everything we do. Alright? This particular archetype of the inner child was very, very strong in me. Because as the only child of my parents, I felt it was my duty to win all the elocution competitions and dance competitions and everything I possibly could for them. So I was a bad loser. When I would, if at all I would lose at anything, I wouldn't be able to take that. As a grown-up, I realized that I had this inner child in me. And it just happened in my case that whichever scholarship or anything I applied for, I always got it. Once I read what the actual requirements were for a particular scholarship, I knew I did not qualify for it. Because they wanted 10 years experience and I barely had 2 years experience. I purposely applied for that scholarship only to learn how to accept failure. Of course I didn't get it. Of course I got disqualified. And I learned how to deal with things. Somehow, right from the beginning, we are made to fear failure. Failure is not something to be feared. It is something to be understood because it could lead to tremendous growth. But we are not encouraged to do that, right? So, I'll win if it kills me, is the attitude of the driver. Come what may. And then if somebody else wins, oh, she won it because, what do we say? Her father knew this person, the judge was known to her, the father, therefore there was partiality, the teacher did this, something we say, only because we cannot accept failure. And unfortunately, we see it on the media as well. We see it not only in sports, where of course, though they come and shake hands and they hug, at the end of it you know that there is tremendous distress. But it even happens in MasterChef. The Dalai Lama was once asked to be the guest on MasterChef. And he said, why should I choose? Everyone has prepared amazing dishes in very different ways. But our own thinking is so competitive that we want to win and we want someone to lose. So when it comes to something which is nurturing like food, we still have competition there. Right? Even when it's something which is so full of fun and joy, we have dance competitions, singing competitions. Have you ever seen a competition among sparrows or nightingales? Who's singing the best? Who's chirping the best? Why? Why this self versus other consciousness? So that's the driver. And the flip side of the driver is a lazy layabout. Some people are so scared of taking a risk that they won't do it at all. I don't want to do it because I don't want to fail. As simple as that. Lazy. Let's move on. And this is of course, we just talked about this. The rescuer and the victim. Look at this cartoon. Hold on, I can't teach you to swim. You won't need me anymore. You see, every such personality of the inner child comes from low self-esteem. Every single one. Low self-esteem. If I teach you how to cook, you will not depend on me and you will not wow my cooking. You see this? And unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of women at home who are excellent cooks, don't have girls who are excellent cooks or boys who are excellent cooks. Because the children themselves feel that I won't be able to cook as well as mom. So what? So what? So the rescuer wants to be needed. And the victim plays the needy. There can't be a rescuer without a victim or a victim without a rescuer. I can't do it. Oh, don't worry, I'll help you. Great. But empower that person. Don't do it for that person. As the common saying goes, don't give fish, teach the person how to fish. Right? So that's the victim and the rescuer. Then next, the rationalizer. I don't feel anything. I'm in control. Now the rationalizer, as the name indicates, has grown up to believe that emotions are the cause of all our trouble, which is nonsense. But the child, as a child, he may have seen a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, whatever in the family. All this emotional stuff has made him label emotions as dangerous, psychologically. So that person feels, I should only think things out. Only think things out. And the rationalizer is obsessed with the minutest details of anything that's intellectual. Nothing emotional. Okay? Next. Manipulator. The manipulator, look at the cartoon. If you don't give me a sweet, I'll tell. So I'm going to do this emotional atyachar. So the manipulator knows, again, lack of self-esteem and a desire for power. A desire for power. Why would you desire power? If you have self-esteem, then you're going to say, I am me and that other person is him or her. But then, trying to appear more in control. See, I told a lie and they bought my lie. Is a manipulator. And they can feign illnesses. They are the ones who will be really sick before the exams. So, the manipulator. And especially when you have siblings, you find that one kid becomes mummy's pet or daddy's pet because that person knows how to twirl that parent round his or her little finger. That's a manipulator. This is the worst. This is the most unfortunate. The hurt child. The hurt child has been so damaged physically and emotionally that the child builds a wall much more than the rationalizer and cuts off emotions completely. These are the people who can become psychopaths. They are the people who can kill, who can murder, who can rape without feeling anything. You know, and very, very often, as we know, when you go back to their past, you find a hurt child. So, have you understood these? These are very simple. Have you understood these inner child personalities? Pleaser, rebel. Driver, lazy layabout. Rescuer, victim. Rationalizer, manipulator, and hurt child. Got it? Clear? Wonderful. Now let's get on to the most interesting part of it. The anima and the animus. Are you tired? Do you want somebody to manage this? So there's lots of digging, lots of excavation work to do. And most importantly, do it with a sense of curiosity, not with guilt. All of us have all this rubbish. So don't do it with a sense of guilt. Do it with a sense of curiosity. Okay? Anima and animus. Yeah. Now this time, I would rather that you do the questionnaire first. Don't do the questionnaire last, do the questionnaire first. In our society, in our world, by and large, we favor the logos over the eros. Logos is mind, eros is mainly emotions. They must be in a state of psychic equilibrium. You remember last time's lecture, the cross, yes. Thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition, yes. They need to be balanced, right? The logos principle, which is often referred to as a male principle. I don't like the word male because male and female are both there within us. The yin and the yang, Shiva Shakti, we'll come to that. So the male principle, if you like, or the logos, represents rationality, discernment, abstraction, abstract thinking. And it gives rise to such adjectives as imposing, assertive, penetrating. Next, the eros principle represents intuition, your sixth sense, relatedness, and spontaneity. Alright? Both need to be there in equilibrium, but unfortunately they are imbalanced, yes. The contrasexual, meaning if you are a woman, then the male part. If you are a man, then the female component. The contrasexual parts of ourselves are called the anima and the animus. Women have a male component in their psyche, which is called the animus. And men have a female component in their psyche, which is called the anima. Got this? So this is represented by the Tai Chu symbol, often referred to as a yin and yang. So you see the small black circle in the white, that is the contrasexual part. So, femininity and masculinity, not as defined by society, but as contrasexual aspects of yourself are there within you. If you say, I hate all men, then you are denying this part of you. You can never be whole. You would always be HOLE. Similarly with the other sex. So, I explained this. Shiva and Shakti. Okay. When Shiva and Shakti come together, Ganesh is born, and Ganesh is symbolic of wisdom. So wisdom comes when Shiva and Shakti, the male and the female principles, are properly balanced. Okay? Right. Unfortunately, the trajectory of relationships is far from optimal, and we are all wounded lovers. One of the teachers I worked with, a Jungian psychologist called Polly Young-Eisendrath, we'll come to her in a minute. She often says, the way Jung did, Jung said, the minute you love, now if you love somebody, only then will you be hurt by that person. If you are a mother and your child acts rebellious and you are hurt, you're not hurt by other people's children. They may say something rude, you say, gada hai. But you're not doing that with your own kid. So any relationship which involves love involves wounds, which does not mean you run away from it. Let's look at it more carefully. This is Khalil Gibran, one of my favorite Sufi writers. When love beckons you, calls you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold, you yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions as feathers, may wound you. Again, the idea of wounded lovers. Why are you hurt in a love relationship, any kind of love relationship? Because you love. And love is not an emotion, it is your essence. So it is what comes to you naturally. Right? How do you improve your relationships? Let's look at traditional marriages. Marriages in the past were very different from marriages at present. In the past, marriage was seen as a social contract. There were hierarchies. There was no doubt that the male was superior to the female. Hierarchies, and the elder brother was superior to the younger brother and all of that. So all the hierarchies were intact. The family was there only to bring up children and to keep wealth and property and to pass them on to the others. They were arranged largely, and love relationships were always outside marriage. They didn't even expect that there should be love between the partners. Marriage, yes. Love, mistresses. Perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. Again, those of you who've done literature, The Way of the World, Congreve, all 18th century drama talks about it. And it was deemed as the dumb thing, because no husband expected his wife to love him. No wife expected the husband to love. So there was stability in that sense. Loyalty and divorces were frowned upon. Now, what is love like now? What are marriages like now? We choose our partner by choice, largely. Equality. We want sovereignty. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be valued. What's the point of remaining in a marriage if I'm not valued? That's a very simple way of thinking and getting out of a relationship as well. the desire to be respected and held in mind. Love relationships outside marriage are usually deemed unacceptable, unless of course it's a completely open marriage. But there is instability. The number of divorces is increasing every year. People who opt out because they are not seen. Marriage, he doesn't understand me, he fights with me, I'm out. They don't feel heard or felt, and divorces are now becoming very common, unfortunately. Only if marriage could be seen as a school, as a place where you really learn and grow. We'll come to a quote later on that it is a householder's monastery. In a monastery, you don't have an easy life. So in marriage, you don't have an easy life. Most marriages. So the fairy tales which we've grown up with and which have told us that they get married and live happily ever after have not understood marriage at all. Maybe the happily ever after was of the traditional marriage. Okay? So now we are encountering more and more relationship issues. Now it's very important to distinguish love from attachment, bond, and romance. As children, we need strong attachments in our infancy. Imagine a child growing up with a mother who doesn't feed him. He won't survive, right? Attachment to a primary caretaker, at least, is extremely fundamental. John to research on attachment theory. When we grow up, we believe that then I'm in love with that person. You are not. Something about that person's thinking, talk, walk, dressing, whatever, may be interesting to you, unconsciously perhaps even reminding you of your childhood where you felt very secure, and to get attached to that person. That's not love. Neither is romance. All the illusions created by our culture. So, particularly in this day and age of social media, you have people saying, yo, look at me and my husband. And the next week they're divorced. Why? Because we've just grown up. It's very ironical. You expect authenticity in relationships, but you don't expect authenticity in the portrayal of relationships. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? We want to project that everything is hunky with us and cool and this and that. But no, why not? If we talk about our vulnerability or our pain, we fear people will run away from us, isn't it? Because who wants to hear your pain? I have enough pain of my own. I don't want to hear your pain. That's the attitude, isn't it? So love is not attachment, bond, or romance, as it's made out to be. Most of the time, it is our projective identification, our positive shadow that we project onto someone else. So when you fall in love, what happens? It's all lavender sachets and roses. My Prince Charming, there couldn't be anyone better than this guy. And one day up to marriage, he gets up in the morning, how could that well, I would marry this guy. Joking, but you know what I mean. You suddenly start seeing all the warts and pimples. Earlier, you were seeing that person through rose-colored glasses. Now you begin seeing that person through jaundiced yellow-colored glasses. But that person has remained the same. Your identifications have changed. Do you get what I'm saying? Your projective identification, which was largely conditioned by society, made you feel that this person is Mr. Perfect or she's Miss Perfect. But we are human. We can't be perfect, can we? So, our projective identifications and our compulsive storytelling, remember all that we heard and all that we saw on media, all the happy couples on media, our notoriously flawed emotional memory and our distorted perceptions, our predisposition for power hierarchies. We don't want the other person to be more powerful because we are Homo sapiens. And as Homo sapiens, our mammalian part of the brain, you remember anger? The reptilian part of the brain, on top of that the mammalian part of the brain, and on top of that the neocortex of the rational brain. So our mammalian part of the brain, which makes us sapiens, Homo sapiens, is actually tuned to power politics. So this complicates the relationships, and we are incapable of living in the present moment because all this is going on inside our heads. Both idealization and disillusionment are projections of our positive and negative shadow caused by wounds, needs, and rejections from our past. Do you see how important it is to do this earlier work before you fall in love?
Yes.
If you are not aware of it, you are projecting your positive shadow initially and then projecting your negative shadow. Right? When you project your positive shadow, you're saying that this person is absolutely wonderful. She can or he can do no wrong. Both these are unrealistic. Completely unrealistic. Next. This is important. Projections make our intimate friend into our intimate enemy. You remember? I got married to him at that time. We were so close. He was so caring because he's projecting his positive shadow on you. You are projecting your positive shadow on him, and everything seems to be hunky-dory. But reality strikes, okay? And then that person becomes your intimate enemy. And then marriage seems like a trap out of which you need to get out. And the way out is through divorce. But there is a catch even there. Unless you have understood this and come to terms with it, you are going to carry on these projections into your next relationship, and your next relationship, and your next relationship. This is the unfortunate truth. Unfortunate truth. So how important it is for you to understand this. Okay, that person is triggering me. I'm projecting my negative shadow, seeing him as an intimate enemy from having been an intimate friend, but actually he's none of these. So let's carry on. If you don't project it, if you don't understand your projections, you may project it onto a spiritual guru of the opposite sex, because we are still dealing with anima animus. That could happen. That's further complexity. I've talked about this. You can carry on. So you remember the snow globe concept. Here you are in your snow globe thinking you are strong, you are great, you understand yourself, and you are right. The other person is in his or her snow globe feeling exactly the same way. Alright? Yeah. We need to replace our power games with humility and deep compassion, knowing that we are trapped in our snow globes and we see life differently. The same situation, I gave you that example of the campfire. Remember? So what you are seeing 90 degrees ahead of you is very different from what I'm seeing 90 degrees ahead of me. So when we understand that, we develop humility. Well, instead of saying, you're wrong, that's not the way I thought about it, but maybe his thinking was different. So how do we go about it? We'll talk about that. Yeah. We need to first accept ourselves and others with humility and be committed to full acceptance of our brokenness. You are broken and I am broken. This is the Zen concept of wabi-sabi. What happens in Zen aesthetics is that if a beautiful vase or a beautiful object breaks, they put it together and they fill it with gold fillings to say you are precious in your brokenness. And I don't know how many of you enjoy music to the extent that I do, but you should listen to Leonard Cohen. You remember Leonard Cohen is very famous for Hallelujah. But listen to Leonard Cohen's Come Healing. The words of Come Healing are just so powerful because Cohen is saying in this song how he's going to put out his hand and accept his partner with her brokenness, and he hopes that she will accept him in his brokenness. Come Healing is a song. And you shouldn't hear the other singer singing it. He's got a very husky voice. Very, very husky voice. But listen to him singing this song. And of course, for the lovers of literature, he's also a great novelist. One of the most beautiful novels he's written is Beautiful Losers. So he talks a lot about this. In case of intimate relationships, we can try for true bonding. Now, what is this true bonding? I'll explain to you. Consciously withdrawing our unconscious projections, understanding our unconscious anima or animus, owning and nurturing the positive aspects of our contrasexual selves, and rebirthing ourselves to arrive at a state of psychological androgyny, which means balancing the yin and the yang, balancing the masculine and the feminine. So, I don't want to sound conservative, but the truth is that when you get married, you've seen something in that partner at an unconscious level, probably. But then, marriage is there to teach you some very important lessons. Maybe to stand up for yourself, maybe to learn to speak your truth peacefully and powerfully, maybe to learn patience, maybe to learn empathy, and by running away from it, you're taking the easy way out, which is not easy because you're going to be wounded more number of times at the end of it. Okay? So accepting our imperfections. Can we stop here? I'm a little tired.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think even you need a
Short
break. We continue from here at 12 o'clock.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
साथ में बैठ
देखिए ना, मैंने मेडिसिन लेके आई।
इसको कुछ नहीं हुआ है, इधर
नहीं, इसको मेडिसिन